BLUELOCK Side B project just revealed a second BLUELOCK project made to determine the final two members of the Baratsura 3 who will join to represent Japan in the U20 World Cup. With the clear winners of the selection being both Nagi and Kira, what is going to happen within the dynamics of the BLUELOCK team, and specifically how will Kira's return lead to Isagi losing everything and everyone supporting him in BLUELOCK? Well, in today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to be covering. How Ryosuke Kira will be the one to steal everything from Isagi. Before I get into the video though, I want to leave a spoiler warning for the latest chapter of the BLUELOCK manga, being chapter 312, and if you have not read it, I would suggest you click off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. And also, join my Discord server, it's called the Neo Egoist Geeks, and the link to it is down below. Now, I just want to clearly address that everything I say in this video is just a theory, and a crazy theory at that. So do not take everything I'm saying as 100% true, like this is exactly what's going to happen. Don't take it at face value is what I'm saying. Looking at how Kira would return, it's pretty obvious to determine that Kira would return to Baratsura's Side B project. Now, based on Baratsura's knowledge of the BLUELOCK project, as well as the involvement of cameras and monetization for promotional purposes, we can assume that his selection challenges will be drastically difficult. However, we can determine that both Nagi and Kira will be the two members to survive the Side B project and join the Japan U20 team. We don't really need an explanation as to how Nagi will survive, given his incredible trapping and shooting abilities, as well as his inherent creativity when he gets into flow or just naturally feels fired up. But for Kira, it's a little bit different. We don't really know a lot about his character that could justify his survival, or really anything about his playstyle. In short, we really don't know what he's capable of. Or do we? With Kira's return to BLUELOCK, I believe that he will be relatively on par with some of the top players. I mean, Kira was eliminated in the game of tag during the beginning of the series. He can't be that good, right? Well, that's where you're wrong. When it relates to the players that were invited to the BLUELOCK project, Kira was actually relative to Rain when it relates to talent, hypothetically of course. We see in his introductory interview that he received an offer to join the U18 for Japan before he even accepted the BLUELOCK offer. This is just like Rain, who during his backstory with Sai, revealed that during the time that Sai was gone, he was scouted due to his incredible talent. So if Kira was able to reach a similar face value that Rain did due to him being scouted, we can obviously say that Kira has some skills. What skills in particular? We'll get into that later in the video. Going into Kira's return, if Kira is supposed to be relative to the other BLUELOCKers in relation to skill and is a highly skilled character, how exactly did he get that skilled? Because obviously Kira was talented going into BLUELOCK, but with players like Isagi and Rain being able to compete with new generation 11s like Kaiser, but also players like Barō, Shigiri, and Bachara also being incredibly talented players, how can we justify Kira's growth and scaling? Well, that's because of Kira's own training. BLUELOCK was an incredible training facility who turned normal high schoolers into national level players in just 6 months of training. So turning Kira, someone who was already drastically better than the majority of BLUELOCKers going into the project, into someone of their caliber in 6 months isn't as crazy as you may believe. In my opinion, I believe that Kira got to this level training at a specific club. We've seen through Aiku's backstory that highly skilled Japanese players can get recruited for clubs outside of Japan since he was invited to a Serie A club. Plus, Sai's entire character involved him going to play at Real, the greatest club in the world, because he was just that good. So after Kira's elimination, specifically vowing revenge on Isagi, he likely devoted himself to consistent training, where he eventually was scouted by a club where he was able to grow at a greater rate. This club, in my opinion, is a likely Berserk Dortmund. For those who are wondering who this club is, Berserk Dortmund is the rival club of Bayern München and is also the club that sent Isagi his very first offer in the Neo Egoist League. Now, why do I believe that Berserk Dortmund was the club that Kira was sent to? Well, there are obviously a lot of parallels that are drawn between Kira and Isagi, so considering Isagi got his values and the highest value from Bayern München, Kira going to Berserk Dortmund, the rival club of Bayern München, just kinda makes sense. But also because of their incredible training facilities. Back during the 100 Goals Challenge, Anu describes that the features of the 100 Goals Challenge and BLUELOCK Man are actually inspired by Germany's top teams and their training facilities. And when we see Bayern München in the Neo Egoist League, we see that they have this incredibly high-tech obstacle course, which appears to outclass any other stratum when it relates to facilities. Since Berserk Dortmund is the rival club to Bayern München and Bayern München is the strongest club in Germany, we can assume that they had relatively similar training facilities. So after being recruited by Berserk Dortmund, Kira trained at the club with the hopes of getting revenge on Isagi. He continued to evolve until he learned about the Side B project, returning to Japan with the hopes of joining the national team and defeating and getting revenge on Isagi. But with Kira returning, what specific weapons or styles does he have that would allow for him to get revenge on Isagi? Well, before I explain that, let's talk about Kira's ego type. Looking at the very few moments of Kira that we have seen from him, it actually ties into another theory that I had, being the fact that I believe Kira is actually an embodiment of a talented learner and genius hybrid, aka a golden-brained individual. Now, I know a lot of people like to refute the idea of this even being a possibility because how can you be a talented learner and a genius at the same time? Well, let me just explain it simply. A golden-brained player is someone with the potential to balance the desires of the world with their own pursuit of personal pleasure. By being able to balance the wishes and desires of yourself with the wishes and desires of the world, you can create a unification of objectives to pursue, allowing for your talent to shine its greatest. This is why you see players like Noah and Kaiser perform so well, as they embody these talents and ideologies, mixing their personal desires with the desires of the world. And this is shown through explicit dialogue between the two characters and general actions during a game. But now that we have that out of the way, what makes me believe that Kira is a golden-brained individual? Well, by looking at the very few moments that Kira is in at the beginning of the story, the traits that he embodies really highlight a hybrid personality between a talented learner and a genius. Starting with genius, Kira is a hot commodity within the realm of Japanese football, earning the title of crown jewel of Japanese soccer. When you look at how the figureheads of Japan define what a superstar is, they usually relate it to geniuses or players with abnormal physical talents or mentalities that enforce a new ideology across the soccer world. Players like Nagi and Rin fit this description. And they like this because players with abnormal physical talents or mentalities have the ability to redesign the soccer world and in turn bring them in a lot of money. While there are players like Sai, for example, who are not a genius but can still have such an impact, that simply relates to the high level of play that he is currently at and his overall performances. But at their core, the figureheads of Japanese soccer love geniuses. And with their praise of Kira and admiration for his abilities and skills, does it not make sense that he would fit the moniker of a genius? But also through his own inherent dialogue, he presents like a talented learner. Before entering the BLUELOCK project, Kira and Isagi met outside of the building where they had a small discussion about their last game. During that point, Kira was able to identify Isagi's core weapon, being that of high soccer IQ and vision of the field, something that not even Isagi realized until much later in the story. If Kira was able to deduce that from a single game, he himself must have a high analytical ability, especially when Isagi's spatial awareness wasn't on display very much in the moments that we saw. So from both sides of the table, he presents like a talented learner and as a genius, so why couldn't he be both? Why couldn't Kira be this hybrid character or this golden-brained individual? But when talking about Kira's unique weapon and talent, what exactly could it be? Looking at the moments we saw in the tag game as well as in the game against Isagi's former team, there weren't really much about Kira's abilities or style that was inherently flashy. So obviously one of his core talents is not something physical like Loki's speed or Aryu's long limbs. It has to be something more hidden and less visible. While I believe that Kira's unique ability is adaptability. Yes, I believe that Kira's unique talent is the same as Isagi, being able to adapt to the current state of the field. Well, what makes me believe this? Looking at what made Kira get eliminated in the first place, Ego described it as his lack of ego and ability to react to the current conditions of the game. His failure to assess the time that was remaining in the game and his failure to reach out his leg are key points that led to his elimination. In other words, his failure to adapt to the current circumstances of the game and BLUELOCK's ideologies led him to being locked off. And with him vowing revenge on Isagi, it would make sense that his desire to get revenge would lead him to reflecting on Ego's words as to why he lost and evolve himself to awaken this ability to adapt. But now that we've established how Kira would be relative to the rest of the BLUELOCKers and what exactly his weapons would be, how do I see him stealing everything from Isagi? Before I get into the rest of the theory, I want to remind you guys that if you are enjoying this video so far, to leave me a like and subscribe down below to see more awesome BLUELOCK content just like this. It costs you guys absolutely nothing and it helps me out immensely. I'm on the road to 20k, so please help me get there. And if you want to help me even more, if you were to become a member of the channel, you'd earn some awesome benefits like personal video requests and shoutouts in videos, but you would also get your name mentioned in the BLUELOCK New World movie as a contributor to the project, and this also applies to leaving super chats. So like, subscribe, and become a member today to show your support for me and my content. Looking at the latest chapters, we've seen Isagi's ideology shift thanks to his final goal in the NEL, thinking of himself as a tool to take Japan to the top of the soccer world. Now there have been many theories as to how this ideal will turn Isagi into an enemy of Blue Lock, or at least create a rift between himself and his team, as he would slowly begin to force this ideology upon others, which as of late seems to be pulling true. In chapter 311, we see Isagi and Karasu spark an argument over Isagi's specific wording and rude command to Hiyori, to which Karasu checks him on. And while at his core, Isagi isn't necessarily wrong for wanting to push Hiyori to become better, his specific wording sparked a small rift between himself and Karasu, which would have gotten worse if not for Aiku's intervention. So the theory of Isagi creating a rift between himself and his team seems to be bearing some fruit. There's also more hinting in recent chapters that Isagi will actually be isolated from Blue Lock or abandoned from Blue Lock as a whole. In chapter 304, the main focus of that chapter, or at least part of it, was the bonding between Isagi and his family before going into the U20 World Cup. His parents also have some very unique dialogue saying how if nobody supports Isagi, they will still continue to back him because they love him and he is their son. One specific line says from his father, "Mom and I will always be watching over you, and no matter how things change, this is your home to return to." Crazy enough, a lot of people have actually interpreted this as being that Isagi's family will actually pass away during the U20 World Cup, and that to me, that sounds a little too crazy. Or maybe not, maybe it will happen, who knows. But this does hint towards Isagi getting isolated in some capacity. His parents are literally telling him that they will continue to support him no matter what happens or how much he changes, and we've already seen the conflict arise between his new behavior and attitude towards the sport and other people. I feel like these moments are not just coincidental and have some importance in Isagi's future involvement in the story. Going into the U20 World Cup, I do believe that there will be one moment of the tournament where Kira will be forced to be played. Now obviously, Ego refuted the idea of using the Baratsura 3, specifically saying how Kira, if he were to make it, will not be played. And while Ego does say he has control over who gets played in the starting lineup, that isn't entirely true 100% of the time. There is one player who has more pull than Ego when it relates to the starting lineup, that being the current FIFA president, Ray Dark. But why would Ray Dark want to involve himself in this kind of thing? It shouldn't matter that much to him, right? Well, not exactly. In chapter 248, before the PXG game begins, we see Baratsura talking with a bunch of investors as well as Ray Dark. At this moment as well, Ray Dark says that if Baratsura is discussing ways to generate revenue, then he's interested in involving himself. This shows that Ray Dark is like Baratsura, he cares about generating revenue over anything else when it relates to the sport. And in chapter 303, Baratsura expresses that the relationship between Japanese soccer's figureheads and FIFA has grown to a closer degree, likely connecting Ray Dark more to Blue Lock Japan and its potential impacts on them as a whole. Taking a small detour looking at the Side B project, Baratsura explains how Side B will be filmed and streamed through Blue Lock TV for extra revenue towards Japanese figureheads. And with Kira passing, his impacts and actions will be streamed and admired across the world for everyone to see, likely falling in love with his style and talents. But this also means a lot of money. Baratsura could likely inform Ray Dark about the hot commodity that Kira has turned into and essentially force Ego to play Kira in a single game, almost in a way to how Noah was forced to play Isagi due to their contract in the new Egoist League. And because FIFA essentially ordered Ego to play a specific player, he doesn't really have the right to refuse. During this game, I believe that Kira's adaptability and talents would be on full display, which would lead to him scoring a goal and winning Japan the game. What I also believe is worthy to note is that Kira's adaptability is not the same as Isagi's. Isagi's adaptability involves devouring individuals and their talents to evolve. However, I believe that Kira's would be about harmonizing with his team to create a powerful chemical reaction. And I believe that this would eventually connect to Kira's aura manifestation, being an angel or this angelic figure. With players like Nagi who have death as their aura, or Charles who has the Lich, is Kira having an angel really that crazy? It would fit his color palette and it would have a hidden meaning. Angels in a lot of fictional stories and storytelling are actually perceived as this embodiment of good when in reality, they are this evil figure masking itself. That's what Kira essentially is. He's presenting as this harmonizing force to unify Japan, while secretly out to eliminate Isagi and get revenge. It'd also be kind of fitting given Isagi's newest nickname of the Demon King. as Kira, the angel, would be out to slay this demon controlling Blue Lock, aka Yoichi Isagi. What I also think is interesting about this interaction between Kira and Isagi is how well it kind of mirrors the dynamic between Kaiser and Isagi. During the first game against FC Barça, Isagi identified Kaiser and his style as being the perfect embodiment of what he would hope to achieve. And going throughout the Neo Egoist League, Isagi essentially acted as a parasite, taking over Vast Dimension from within, eventually usurping Kaiser's throne from him. When you really look at it, this dynamic would mirror the interactions between Kira and Isagi. Isagi would take Kaiser's place as Kira would come in, being almost parallel to him from a player perspective, and would begin to steal Blue Lock away from him. It'd also be fitting of Isagi mirroring Kaiser in this instance, since his final play in the Neo Egoist League was literally him becoming Kaiser to score. Putting him in Kaiser's spot here fully completes that narrative action. Isagi embodied his ideal style, emulating Kaiser, and now he's slowly feeling the force that Isagi used to push onto Kaiser and Vast Dimension. And this all would connect to the final game of the U20 World Cup. Japan is tied and Isagi is in front of the net in a 2-on-1 situation with Kira out to his right. Kira asks for a pass, but instead, Isagi takes the shot. However, he misses. This play would result in a counterattack by the other team, leading to Japan losing the U20 World Cup finals. Isagi refusing to pass, truly abandoning his desire to become a tool to make Japan the best in the world, would lead to vast humiliation and negative responses from the world, blaming this loss on Isagi. On the other hand, Kira would be praised as being someone who could have scored if Isagi simply made the pass. This would complete the theory of Isagi and Ego being exiled from Blue Lock and Baratsura and Kira fully taking over, stealing everything away from both respective players. For Ego, he lost control of Blue Lock and his dream of turning Japan into the best in the world, and for Isagi, he lost the respect and heat that the world provided to him, losing everything he worked so hard to achieve, with Kira now sitting at the top of Blue Lock's new throne. And that was simply my theory as to how Kira will steal everything away from Isagi going into the U20 World Cup. I know that this theory is just as crazy as my Honor Manipulator theory, but I hope you still see my points nonetheless. But aside from that, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to say thank you so much to all the members of my channel who help support me and my content, and if you wish to earn some awesome benefits like they do and even get your name mentioned in the Blue Lock New World movie, become a member yourself and help support me moving forward. And just a final reminder to join my Discord server if you're ever interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the question of the video though, do you think Kira will return in the series? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe to see more awesome Blue Lock content just like this.